been around some of the world's most insane water slides. In fact, these 5 were all so dangerous that they were banned. Would you risk riding these water slides if they were still open today? Be sure to subscribe to Viral Now and hit the bell so you never miss an upload from us. Also, leave us a like right now. 5. Vinecara Beach Park, Brazil. On a sunny Monday in July 2018, there were no indications of looming tragedy at the popular beach park in northeast Brazil. But tragedy struck quite unexpectedly when a Brazilian journalist was killed on the Vinecara water slide, inaugurated just 2 days before this tragic accident. Police reports indicate that the raft carrying a group of 4 friends tipped over at the end of the ride. He hit his head hard on the concrete wall and never recovered consciousness. The other riders were badly shaken and needed medical care too, but their injuries were only minor. The 19th ride launched at this major tourist magnet. The Vinecara was shut down immediately and will remain out of operation until all the necessary inspections have been completed and repairs have been made. The entire park remained closed the next day, and when it reopened on Wednesday, the Vinecara sign had been removed and its accesses were blocked. But this shocking accident certainly didn't discourage visitors to the park, with huge lines waiting eagerly at the box office for the gates to open. Some of them were obviously nervous about opting for some of the scarier rides, so the park hired a few actors to stand in front of the giant Insano ride, urging people to give it a go. "Who wants to shoot down the Insano?" they shouted. Just so you know, at almost 135 feet, 41 meters, the Insano water slide is the same height as a 14-story building, with riders rocketing down to the landing pool in just 4 to 5 seconds. Opened in 2012, it is still one of the tallest water slides in the world. 3 days before this terrible accident, the Saturday launch of the Vinecara water slide was promoted by a handful of local celebrities, making personal appearances and through social networks as well. But after the tragedy on Monday, many of them deleted these posts, unwilling to link their names to this disaster. However, actor Sergio Malheiros left a poolside snap up on Instagram with the wistful comment, how I wish I'd stayed at Beach Park. But it was just as well his gig ended that day, as he had actually been hired to promote precisely the slide where the accident occurred. Compared to some of the other water rides around the world, the Vinecara doesn't seem all that dangerous. At almost 97 feet, 29.5 meters tall, and over 521 feet, 159 meters long, its run lasts 30 to 40 seconds. Each raft carries no more than 4 riders, clinging to straps in order to stay in their seats. The first drop is really steep, followed by an up curve, another sharp drop, and then a final up curve before splashing into the landing pool. This slide is designed to give riders a zero-gravity feeling, like dropping off the crest of a wave. That's insane, but there's no denying the law of gravity, as these riders sadly discovered. So far, nobody knows why this accident happened, so it's a really wise move to close this ride. 4. Verrückt Water Slide, Kansas City. Once the biggest water slide in the world, the Verrückt, German for insane, tower stood almost 170 feet, 52 meters tall, in the Schlitterbahn Kansas City Water Park, outstripping the Kilimanjaro ride at the Aldeia de Águas Water Park in Brazil. It ranked as the world's tallest water slide when it opened in 2014. It was closed down permanently just 2 years later after a gruesome accident that resulted in the death of the 10-year-old son of Kansas State Representative Scott Schwab. Caleb was apparently decapitated when the raft flew into the air at high speed, hitting one of the metal bars providing support for a netting cover. The entire park closed immediately, pending an inspection. It reopened on August 10, 2016, but the ride was shut down forever and is now being dismantled. Some people initially believed that this tragedy was not caused by poor design or an inherent fault in the slide, but was rather due to the negligence of the employee boarding riders into the rafts. He failed to ensure an even balance by allowing the youngster to ride in front of 2 grown women, leaving the slide back heavy. But investigations showed that the ride was actually designed off the cuff by Schlitterbahn co-owner Jeff Henry and ride designer John Schooley. Eager to build the world's biggest, tallest, and fastest water slide, they planned its starting point as taller than Niagara Falls. Now that's insane. Constructed largely on a trial and error basis, Schlitterbahn had to rip out much the lower section after sandbags flew off the track during trial runs, changing the angle of the bottom of the main drop and slowing it down by adding an extra 5 feet, 1.5 meters, to the uphill portion of the ride. One of the most controversial aspects of this design, and also the immediate cause of the tragedy, was a modification introduced after rafts spun off the ride during early testing. Hoops were installed to hold up a netting tube covering the ride. This added a new hazard, as riders could easily lose a limb, or worse, if they hit at high speed. In early 2018, a grand jury issued a slew of indictments against the Schlitterbahn companies and some of their officers, charging them with second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, aggravated battery, aggravated child endangerment, and interference with law enforcement, together with negligence, concealing design flaws, and downplaying the severity of previous injuries, together with a few other felonies. In fact, a total of 11 people were hurt while riding this water slide, with injuries ranging from slipped discs and whiplash to broken toes and lacerations during the months between its launch in 2014 and the day of the fatal tragedy in 2016. Designed, built, and operated by overly ambitious people with no technical or engineering qualifications, according to the court prosecutors, it's no wonder this dangerous ride was banned. 3. Action Park, New Jersey. The world's most notorious amusement park, Action Park, opened in New Jersey back in 1978 when nobody really cared much about health and safety regulations. And the shocking reason that it closed in 1996 was the number of visitors who were injured there, some of them hurt so badly that they apparently died. This park was divided into 3 main sections: the Alpine Center, Motor World, and Water World. Most of these famous fatalities occurred in its Water World section, where the main and most lethal attraction was the infamous Cannonball Loop. Basically a regular water slide, the Cannonball tube plummeted almost straight down and then rose and turned back on itself, forming a complete vertical loop at the end. This ride was so terrifying that the management had to pay its employees $100 each to test it. That's insane. Opened for just a single month in the summer of 1985, the Cannonball Loop was promptly shut down by the State Advisory Board on Carnival Amusement Ride Safety in a draconian step that was extremely unusual for those easygoing days. But workers told local journalists that there had been too many bloody noses and injured backs among its riders. Another visitor was rumored to have been struck at the top of the loop due to inadequate water pressure, leading to a hatch being installed at the bottom of the slope for future rescue operations. There is even an urban legend that test dummies retrieved from pre-opening trial runs were dismembered and even decapitated. This ride was rumored to have opened and quickly closed again a few more times during subsequent years. It was certainly open for several days in the summers of 1995 and 1996 before further injuries forced it into permanent shutdown. For the remainder of the park's existence, the Cannonball Loop remained visible near the entrance to Waterworld, a looming reminder of its careless past. Water parks with looping rides are found in many countries today, but they learned from the terrible example of Action Park and its terrifying Cannonball Loop. In a perfect circle like this, the resulting G-force is enough to break a rider's neck. Today's loops are tilted and spiraled, imposing far less pressure on their riders with all the thrills but far fewer spills. So there was every justification for banning this slide. 2. Calypso Water Park, Canada. The Calypso Water Park in Ontario sounded like a really relaxing place to visit. Covering 100 acres, almost half a square kilometer, this was the largest themed water park in Canada. And in June 2010, it stood out from the competition through sheer size and many latest generation attractions. By 2015, it had welcomed 2 million visitors, but 2015 was also the year that it was slapped with 20 charges, each carrying a potential $1 million fine that were prompted mainly by lax management and sheer negligence. Although 9 of these charges were withdrawn by the prosecution during the trial, guilty verdicts were handed down on 6 of the 11 charges filed against it under Ontario's Technical Standards and Safety Act. These convictions resulted largely from unsafe operations and undertrained staff, particularly on the steamer slide and the orange bobsleigh ride. Several riders testified about crashes on the park slide that left them injured. The park failed to shut down the steamer slide after a series of tube flips in the summer of 2011 that left several riders injured, not even notifying the authorities of these incidents. It also failed to report a serious accident that occurred in June of 2011 when a tube flipped as it left the steamer's bowl-shaped structure, breaking a rider's vertebrae in 2 places and leaving her in a halo vest for 4 agonizing months, indicating a trend. Another rider testified in court to suffering a broken collarbone in a similar flip over just a month later. Operating the orange bobsleigh slide in an unsafe manner led to more convictions for the park. Poorly trained employees sent a tube down the slide too early, crashing into another tube and throwing a rider right off the slide into the concrete below, knocking him unconscious. The judge said very sternly that this accident was absolutely preventable if its operators been properly trained. In other accidents, 2 orange bobsleigh riders were thrown from their rafts after hitting the end of the slide. In fact, during a single month in 2011, there were 10 injuries on the steamer slide, 7 of which were flips and 2 resulting in spinal injuries. However, the authorities weren't notified about these incidents until the end of the season. By the time the Technical Standard Safety Authority shut down the ride, the water park had already closed for the season. It's a great pity so many people were injured, but at least no one else will be hurt on these dangerous rides. 1. Fort Rapids Water Park, Ohio. The track record of the Fort Rapids Water Park in Columbus, Ohio is a real roller coaster ride of disasters. Once the old Holiday Inn East before it closed in 2004, its new owner spent millions of dollars to turn this 12-story tower into a water park linked to a 343-room hotel. But in 2016, Fort Rapids was shuttered by the Columbus Police Department for a series of health and safety violations, including robberies, fire code violations, breaches of the peace, air quality, chlorine fumes, bed bugs, cockroaches, and substandard food service, among many other violations. Worse still, an electrical fire shortly before it closed tainted the air so badly in the water park that several people felt sick. In 2017, it was sold to a California investor who was still exploring the options for this damaged building and its 16-acre site. That's over 16,000 square meters. In an area that is rapidly falling victim to urban blight, it has certainly gone downhill in the years since its original owners poured millions into this complex. Sold for $5 million in 2010, its owners managed to get only $2.5 million back on its divestment in 2017. Disaster struck yet again in January 2018 when a burst pipe on the 11th or 12th floors flooded the vacant building with freezing water. Streaming out of the windows and vents, these torrents turned its gloomy facades into glittering waterfalls of ice. Soon afterwards, plans to repair and reopen the water park and its hotel were put on hold when the investor group learned that a psychiatric hospital was going to be built right next door to this embattled facility. The history of this water park has just as many chills and thrills as its rides, which were luckily banned just before they collapsed under all these misfortunes. So that's a high-speed trip around 5 of the world's most insane water slides, and they've all been banned. Looking at the number of accidents, injuries, and even deaths that they caused, they certainly provided more spills than thrills.